shall go on to our next speaker, Dr. Rajan Narayan, who's the Director and Network Head and Clinical Research of LVPI, who's going to be telling us how to better interpret OCT in retinal disorders. On to you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chitra. I'll be talking about OCT interpretation and also not just the OCT by itself. What do you do if you have a particular finding A, B, or C? I would like to thank my co-authors. We have worked on some of these presentations earlier, and I got some images from some of them. The disclaimer is that OCT terminologies keep changing every few months. ISOS junction then becomes ellipsoid zone, then you will have newer term choroidal clefts, drill, so many of them. It is beyond the scope of this presentation, but the basics of OCT interpretation will guide us in better care of our patients. You should be the master of OCT, or in fact any diagnostics, and not be a servant. In the sense, you should be able to interpret and either approve or reject what the machine is telling us. Our clinical judgment is supreme always. OCT can be used to diagnose, prognosticate, plan treatment or medical treatment or surgery. In terms of ARMD or other causes of CNVM, it is important to know the cause of the CNVM and the type of the CNVM. CNVM is only a sign, it is not a disease by itself. Many diseases can cause choroidal neovascular membrane. We have choroidal osteoma, it's a wide range, high myopia, obviously macular degeneration is number one. You can have inflammatory cause, you can have angioids, you can have inherited retinal dystrophies as causes of CNVM. But all of them have different prognosis, different response to treatment. What are the types of CNVM based on histopathology or OCT? There are mainly three types. Type 1 is what you see generally as occult CNVM on FA, which is below the RP. As you can see here, most of the CNVM in this case is below the RP. That has a different prognosis. Type 2 is generally classic CNVM on FA. Usually it is above the RP. Usually this will have a slightly different prognosis. While you may be giving injections in all of them, but you should know which diseases cause which type. I will come to it in the later slides. And how do they respond to treatment? Some of them, like ARMD, you have to give 70, 80, 90, 100 injections also over many years. Whereas myopic CNVM, you will have to give very few injections, or choroidal osteoma. The type 3 is retinal angiomatous proliferation, which is intraretinal. So what are the differences, occult and classic, or type 1 and type 2? If you have done an OCT, if it is mostly below the RP, ARMD is the most common. What does happen? So what? Most ARMD CNVMs are type 1 and they respond very slowly. They take a lot of time and they progress also slowly, as I have written at the bottom. What about type 2? If it is above the RP, in general, ARMD, very few of them have a classic component, but main ones are myopic, inflammatory, angioid streaks, choroidal osteoma, or even parafoveal telangiectasia. It can start from intraretinal. They tend to progress fast and resolve also with fewer injections. If a patient asks you, doctor, can I delay my injection by a few days? I'm going for some marriage or wedding, something, some excuse they will have. So you have to decide which ARMD, which CNVM are you dealing with, and how many injections you can prognosticate. So one next point about OCT is sometimes not every dark reflective space is edema. This is outer retinal tubulation. What you see is they have a lining, hyper-reflective lining, which is called outer retinal tubulation, and they are not suggestive of edema. You don't have to treat them in general. Obviously, subretinal scar, if you have shadowing underneath the thick membrane and clinically also it's a scar, don't have to inject these cases. But what do you tell the patient? Patient, let's say, has ARMD, you have decided to treat. What the CAT trial shows is that patients, you can treat either monthly injection or you can do PRN. When I mean PRN in CAT trial, it was monthly visit, but you don't inject when there is no fluid. But the visit is every month. The average letter gain is about 8.8 letters if you use Lucentis monthly, or 7.8 injections if you use Avastin monthly. So this is something which we all should know. It's not about just seeing fluid or giving injection. You should be able to tell the patient what is likely to be in your case, how much is going to be the gain, what is the number of injections you are likely to receive. If you see a thumb-like PED or sharp PED, it may signify PCV. Other OCT diagnostic tools for PCV include a notched PED or even a double layer sign which corresponds to the branching vascular network. Why is this important? Because PCV is one, they can bleed. Two, they may sometimes need treatment other than anti-VEGF. PDT unfortunately is no longer available, but TTT, or if there are foveal polyps, then you can give thermal laser in these cases. Not everything that is subretinal, which is hyperreflective, should be injected. This is a patient who presented after receiving 2 injections in the left eye. He had some subretinal yellowish lesion. On OCT, he had this hyperreflectivity, some subretinal fluid, and this actually was when we did the FA, it was subretinal fibrin, and you could see the typical CSR leak, pinpoint leak. And we did Navilas laser, and with no further injection, only laser, this result. So not everything which is hyper reflective with fluid is CNVM. Don't keep injecting just because there is something hyper reflective. What about DME? If you have DME, you should also know what to tell the patient other than many injections have to be given. Or unfortunately, most people say only 3 loading doses as if DME will be over in 3 months. No. So in patients who receive injections in DME, even at 5 years, the average letter count was 7 to 10 letters. What did it show? When you have different types of injections, whether it's bevacizumab, ranibizumab, or aflibercept? I think it's my timer, so I'll just go to the next slides fast. So you have to decide the baseline visual acuity to decide what is going to be the improvement. Like in this case, if it is ERM 2040 good ellipsoid zone, you can do a surgery and patient will improve very nicely. Whereas this patient has edema disrupted ellipsoid zone 2060 vision, this patient probably will improve 2 to 3 lines and not more than that. So what is the end point for
Can I
injection?
request you to please conclude?
Just give me 1 or 30 seconds. So there are Indian DME guidelines. Anti-VEGF are recommended as first line. Laser if it's non-central, surgery for VMT or ERM. Endpoint, that when can you stop injecting? When there is no change in vision for 2 or more consecutive visits after the first 6 months or less than 50 microns change. So VRSA members usually switch after 3 injections. This is, I will skip this one here. Don't become an OCT specialist, be a retina specialist. This patient came to me saying that he was told that he was advised injection because of edema. When we repeated the scan, actually it was macular hole. Edge of the macular hole has edema, so you should look at all the scans. So don't be an OCT specialist and be a retina specialist. A good fundus examination is important. I'll just finish with one last video. Get trained in whatever, even if it is injections, get trained. Okay, unfortunately, it's not playing. This was a patient who got Ozurdex injection by a retina surgeon. Unfortunately, the injection was given inside the lens. Patient underwent cataract surgery, and the Ozurdex implant also came out with the phacoemulsification. So get trained before you treat any patient. So in conclusion, control the urge for injection. Common mistake is clinical evaluation and interpretation. Do not harm the patient. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
So I have one question. Or would you want to ask Srinivas? Just one time. What are the software related? You asking?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What are some software related artifacts in OCT, and what are some artifacts which you see in some particular diseases too?
So artifacts are of various types. I'm not going into OCT angiography. Fortunately or unfortunately, my talk was on OCT, not OCT angiography. OCT angiography, there can be a presentation by itself on artifacts in OCT angiography, and it is not that useful in routine clinical practice. But yes, artifacts can be of various types. There can be inversion artifact, especially I showed some of the cases. Then you can have in very high reflective lesions, supposing you have even a blood vessel, so you may interpret it as some lesion if there is a shadowing behind it. Signal strength also plays an important part. Sometimes you may miss on some lesions which are otherwise picked up. High reflective dots can also cause shadowing effect, especially if you're looking at the choroidal images. you need to be careful to look at what the retinal pathology is showing if you're looking at the choroidal vasculature to look at specific diagnosis. So you should be, I don't think you have any software to remove in OCT alone, but OCT angiography, there are softwares which can remove all the artifacts or most of the artifacts.